All right, everyone, welcome to Belfast, Europe's other divided city. You already know what the other one is. It also starts with a B, hint, hint. Now, I would be doing a huge disservice without talking about the Troubles. What were the Troubles, you may ask? Well, it's complicated. I'm going to try to simplify it as much as possible. You had the British come here and kind of force their rule and their way of life onto the island that is Ireland, and you had the Irish Free State Agreement after World War One, after the Irish tried to regain, their land, or they tried to, claim it as the British were occupied fighting World War One. And for the longest time, over 40 years, tensions were they're simmering, but they haven't exploded to the surface yet, if you get my drift. No, not until 1968, 69, kind of coinciding with the worldwide year of protests, where you had people addressing things like environmental awareness, U.S. troops out of Southeast Asia, and a host of other things, feminism and whatnot. Well, during this time, that's when you had Protestants who are loyal to the British Empire, to the Crown, and then Catholics who were separatists. They wanted nothing to do with Britain, they wanted nothing to do with the UK, and they wanted the northern part of Ireland to be united with the Republic of Ireland. Because if you look on a map, you'll notice there's that part up there that is not part of the Republic. So, throughout the 70s, 80s, even into the 90s, you had all these terrorist bombings. Also, spoiler alert, this video will most likely get age restricted because I will not shy away from using these words. Fair warning. Many terrorist bombings, many assassinations of people of high status, right? Margaret Thatcher was targeted in 1984 in a failed assassination attempt when she was staying in a hotel. I forget which one. A cousin of the Queen was actually assassinated also. This happened in sometime in the late 1970s. I want to say 79, but don't quote me on that. 1972, however, that was the peak of the violence. You had nearly 500 deaths in the conflict in that year alone. So, during that time, 71, 72, and like that's when violence was like sky high, and it struck fear and intimidation in the community, and people were they were scared shitless as to like, oh my god, is this going to happen to me? Or so, needless to say, it created a lot of PTSD, a lot of mental trauma in many of the people in these communities who lived through those times. You had a hunger strike by Bobby Sands in 1981, and like I said, it's a whole host of things. So I'm gonna do everyone a solid watching this video, and I'm gonna link in the description below a video that I think perfectly encapsulates the Troubles, because it is an entire video or videos in and of themselves, but I hope my synopsis, or my best attempt at a synopsis, really made people kind of understand the conflict as much as possible. But I'm going to put that video in the description because it definitely, again, it illustrates the conflict way more than what I just told you now. Now, if you excuse me, my arm is getting tired. This is the peace wall that separated Protestant and Catholic communities, and still does to this day. Now, one thing you'll notice when you come to Belfast very quickly are all the Palestinian flags you see waving out of people's houses and just on many of these murals. They don't call them murals, they call them murals around here. And that is because the people who are more on the Irish Republican side of the conflict, they see the Palestinian struggle as similar to their own. Because one thing I do know is about 800, 900 years, that's how long the British persecution of the Irish took place. I'm no expert in math, but that is a very long time. Very, very long time. So they see, you know, the Palestinian struggle with Israel as very similar to their struggle against the British. All right, in the back of me is City Hall there. City Hall there. Apologies for that honk. I did not expect that to happen. Without this building back here, there would be no Belfast. It's the mitochondria of the city, if you will. Without this, there would be no Belfast. And this is right across from the City Hall. Now, I took a tour this morning, and the tour guide told me that in that area right there, right as you enter across the street, there used to be a big security checkpoint as a result of the Troubles and all the terrorist bombings that took place. I actually had no idea about that. I don't know how much you can compare it to, say, airport security and how long that takes. You know, it takes longer in other airports than others, but I digress. And as a result, it's like, you know, people growing up in this area, you know, they go to like London or whatever, and they fully expect like a full pat down, you know, bombs and guns and other weapons. But yeah, it was like that for, I think it was like about over 25 years or something like that, from like basically from the onset of the Troubles, so like late 60s, early 70s till about the mid 90s, I'd say. It was like that, and I believe there was also a curfew that took place. So the streets were quite empty at that time, during that time of the day. Now, when did the Troubles end, you may ask? Well, there's two separate schools of thought on this. There was the IRA ceasefire in 1994, which was a little bit temporary, although by that time, like, largely the violence and all the heightened tensions kind of ended by that point. For the most part, there was still obviously a lot of there were still, like, you know, quite a bit of like clashes and butting heads of the two groups that I laid out earlier. But it wasn't until 1998 with the Good Friday Agreement signed by Tony Blair. I believe Bill Clinton was there also, then our president, and other leaders. However, violence still continued even after that, albeit to a way, way lesser extent. So, over the past 25 years or so, 25 plus years, Belfast has been trying to reinvent itself, trying to kind of like bolster the tourism industry. And for all you Titanic heads out there, this is the place to come to, because they got a lot of Titanic stuff here. Got a museum, and I'm kind of in the area where all that stuff starts. I'm not really too big into the whole Titanic story. I did enjoy the movie. I've seen it a few times. Very long. If you had it on VHS back in the day, I think you had like 2 or 3 tapes you had to watch it on because it was so long. But yeah, I'm trying to cater to you people watching who love Titanic so much, and you love the storyline. You love the fact that someone with the same name as me was on a door about to sink to the bottom of the ocean. Yes, I know most of the commentary has been done at the beginning of this video, but make no mistake, this is a nice city to visit. You don't need to spend a whole lot of time here. It's not very big. We're definitely not talking the size and scale of London, Paris, or shit, even like Barcelona, you know, elsewhere in Europe or even the world. So things to see, things to do, but yeah, just you really don't need to spend a whole lot of time here. I'd say I give it 2 days tops. 2 days. That's a common noise around here. Motorcycles, motorbikes, whatever they call them around here. I think it's motorbikes. But lots of stuff to see and do here. Not too not like a whole lot, but you know, there's hidden gems for sure. The Troubles technically ended with the Good Friday Agreement in 1998. However, that doesn't necessarily make Belfast in Northern Ireland, the place we're in at the moment, immune to terrorism. Things can still boil over at any moment. You know, so there can definitely be an assassination or something like that tomorrow or today, whenever, right? But make no mistake, it is still a very safe place to visit, despite its past. They've really come a long way. The city has come a long way. Northern Ireland has come a long way since the Troubles. So, that being said, I think that'll be it for Belfast. There's definitely more to see here than what I've shown you. With that being said, I'll see you in the next location. Peace out.